They're packing up their lives and leaving behind a place they've called home for decades. Their destination unknown. This is one of dozens of Bedouin communities in the occupied West Bank forced to leave their lands in recent years. The last community remaining around Ramallah.
It's either the prison or the grave. If we fight the settlers, we'll get arrested. If we don't, they will humiliate and kill us. What options are these?
This is what forced displacement looks like. Israeli settlers seizing land, intimidating people and pushing them out. The land of God is big, this 12-year-old says. But in the occupied West Bank, land is shrinking for the indigenous Palestinian people. The UN has documented a dramatic increase in settler violence, a record 1,800 attacks since 2024, displacing more than 880 Palestinians. Those who managed to remain on their land, like Sulaiman Mlihat, say they pay a heavy price. Instead of playing and learning, his children have worries beyond their years. They memorize the names of illegal settler outposts nearby, the faces and cars of settlers who regularly attack them. His 6-year-old daughter Maryam was in her classroom during this rampage by settlers.
She's terrified and wakes up at night scared. She's witnessed many attacks before, but this one in the school devastated her. She didn't have me or her mother around, so she lost her sense of safety.
The family says one of their attackers was someone who was recently sanctioned by the UK government, Zohar Sabah. The new restrictions target 3 individuals, 2 illegal settler outposts, and 2 organizations that Britain says support violence against Palestinians.
I don't think this will end the ethnic cleansing of the Bedouin communities. Not at all. And Zohar is staying in the mountains here. He is not going to travel anywhere. He is immune by the government itself.
While some international governments take steps to preserve the possibility of a 2-state solution, land is being stripped away. People are being forcibly kicked out. And Palestinians now fear the pressure against Israel's illegal settlement expansion might be too late. Nida Ibrahim, Al Jazeera.
And Nida is joining us live in the studio now. Great to have you with us, Nida. So settlers have been attacking Palestinian Bedouins for years, but it's something that we've really seen a great increase in since the war in Gaza began.
Indeed, the settler attacks have become more organized, and they've been attacking these Bedouin communities day and night, as we've seen there in the report. A school was not spared from the settler attacks. In one instance, they put some toys inside a grave that they dug under the ground to show Palestinians that this is the fate that they're going to be faced with if they stay on these lands. And so many families among the Bedouin communities were saying, we cannot leave our children vulnerable to these attacks. Remember, these are vulnerable communities living in vast areas across the occupied West Bank, so they don't have the support system of the rest of the community, the rest of the villages to come and aid them. And they feel that they've been left alone by everyone, by the Palestinian government, by the international world, fighting these settlers that have been grouping in gangs and attacking Palestinians day in and day out. And the goal, they would tell you, is to grab as much land as possible by kicking Palestinians out of their lands.
And you've mentioned how they often feel alone because of the nature of their existence, but we have seen settler attacks even on Palestinians that live in built-up refugee camps that are towns and cities. There's an increase in settler attacks, not just on Bedouin communities, across the occupied West
Indeed,
Bank.
and just now in Al Mghayr village near Ramallah, we're seeing Israeli settlers putting up a new illegal settlement outpost. Now, all settlement is considered illegal under international law, but what settlers do is that they often start off with a settlement outpost that has not been recognized by the Israeli government and that later gets retroactively recognized. So they basically create reality on the ground, not just amongst the Bedouin communities, but all across the villages and towns in the occupied West Bank. You see these patterns of Israeli settlers using so many tactics, but under one goal, which is to grab as much land as possible. We've been also seeing these settlers taking their herds, bringing sheep and grazing in these lands to kind of grasp as much land and territory as possible and depriving the Palestinian Bedouin community from these vast lands that they use. Remember, these Bedouin communities are very important when it comes to the sheep, when it comes to the dairy products that they produce for the whole society. But they also have been seen as a way to protect these lands and prevent them from the growing illegal settlement outposts and illegal Israeli settlements. And we've been seeing them day in and day out taking more lands by force, burning cars. And now we should point out that in Buruqi, near Salfit, in the north of the occupied West Bank, settlers have been rampaging, and for the 10th day in a row, they're still attacking
we were reporting
homes.
that a few days ago. In fact, not just burning homes, but burning cars as well in Burkina. We mentioned that the UK passed sanctions on settlers, on settler outposts and organizations. They're not the first Western sanctions we've seen in the last few years on settlers. Why aren't they having an impact?
Because Palestinians would tell you that the Israeli government is providing cover for these settlers. They see them attacking Palestinians, but what often happens is that the Israeli army comes in and they offer more protection for the Israeli settlers. And we've seen this happening time and again. And we've also seen Palestinians being killed while they are defending their lands from these growing settler attacks. Remember, settlers have access to arms, and Palestinians at large in the occupied West Bank have no access to weapons. So you can talk about this, hierarchy and power dynamic that leaves the Palestinians at the end of the day vulnerable. So yes, they are happy to see international governments recognizing that there is settler violence, that there are settlers who are inciting and grouping against Palestinians. But at the end of the day, they want to see action on the ground to prevent those settlers from attacking. And they feel that these sanctions, they can provide something on a diplomatic level, but on the ground, they're not able to curb the settler attacks against Palestinians. Just to give you a small example, from May 13th until May 19th, the UN has recorded 28 settler attacks against Palestinians. So if that tells you anything, this happened just days before the UK sanctioned these settlers. And nothing has happened in the sense that these settlers have been sanctioned before, but they still continue to be attacking Palestinians as if they say to the world, we don't care.
Thank you very much for that context, Nida. That's Nida Ibrahim.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.